Hey guys, this application here is a real-time strategy resource manager simulation. Once you launch the application, the first thing you'll see here is the GUI. This GUI was written in C++ using the Qt framework or Qt. The first thing you'll notice is the two trees here representing the data that was loaded in from a file, usable resources and unusable resources. Um, the resources are represented in a way that the drop-down arrows will indicate which resources a primary resource will rely on. So, for example, handgun here relies on bullets. The bullets resource relies on ore. Ore doesn't rely on anything. Bombs also relies on ore. Turret relies on bullets, and so forth. There's also a little quick bar on the left here for adding a resource, deleting a resource, rendering a scene. There's a little help button here that'll launch a little tutorial to read through. There's also a quit button here. At any point while you're manipulating this graph, deleting and adding resources, you can hit the render scene button down here, and it will launch a 3D representation of the graph that you've been manipulating. This application here is actually written in C++ and DirectX 10. The cubes are labeled with render to texture on each face. They're dynamically represented. These are 3D cubes to represent the nodes. The links between them are color-coded, and they're meant to be read from black to red. So handgun can be read as relying on bullets from black to red. Bullets relies on ore. Bombs rely on ore. And turrets rely on bullets. That's the current representation of the data in the GUI. As you can see here, no matter what the data is, no matter how big the graph is at any point, it'll always be shown in a circle. That seemed to be a good way of organizing it. You can move around in the graph or in this 3D scene with WASD keys to move back and forth. You can move up and down with Z and X, and you can also hold and click the mouse to rotate the camera any which way you'd like. You can also use the right and left arrow keys to adjust the slider down in the bottom left corner to adjust the navigation speed back and forth. This comes in handy when the graph is very large and you would like to traverse it quickly, because the camera is going to compensate to back you up pretty far to see the whole graph. You'll see the usefulness of that pretty shortly. That's basically the general functionality of this application. I'd like to run through an example to kind of show how to use this. Alright, the original file that came with the project is pretty simplistic. As you saw, there's only a few nodes that are rendered, but basically the primary functionality of this application can be seen by adding and deleting resources. So you have this resource handgun, but if you delete bullets, then handgun becomes unusable, and that's indicated by the highlighted red resource saying that the handgun needs the bullet resource to be usable again. The bullet resource has been deleted, so itself is just red, and the turret relies on bullets, but since bullets is deleted, it's also gone. You can render the scene again, and something happens here that didn't show up in the last graph. The red nodes indicate the nodes that are now disabled. So the turret node down here is disabled because it's missing the bullets resource, and the handgun resource is now red because it's missing the bullets resource as well. And the bullets resource altogether is it's deleted, it's not on the graph anymore. So you have two disabled resources. That's kind of the dynamic nature of the 3D graph here. And you can render multiple versions of the graph to kind of compare what's going on. You can add back bullets, and that'll add back the resources that got deleted. You can render the graph again, and that's the original version of the graph. So you can kind of compare the two. You can render as many graphs as you like, as many as your machine can handle. But to show a little more of an extensive example, I'd like to load in a new resource.txt file. It's a little bigger. It's got a few more nodes to kind of show what it can do. Give me a second here. Alright, so let me relaunch this application. And now you'll see in the usable tree we have a lot more resources here. This was something that I came up with myself. I just figured it was a good example of what an RTS game would kind of have. So the new graph is substantially larger, so the camera is backed up pretty far. As I said before, the slider comes in handy here a little bit when you want to get a little more close up on the nodes. So this is the new representation of the graph. It's a little messier, but it's still in a circular structure. You can see all the relationships here, such as a furnace requiring wood, concrete, bricks, etc. Adding and deleting some of these resources here. A lot of the resources depend on steel, so if you delete steel, quite a bit of the resources become unusable. You can render the graph again. You'll see there's I think 10 resources or so that are disabled now, and the steel resource is completely off the graph. So that's that. That's basic adding and deleting of resources. You can also edit a current resource by, if you deselect all resources and you hit add, it'll let me deselect these. If you hit add and you have nothing selected, it'll ask for the name of a resource to add to. So for example, the resource, let's see, it's water here. If we type in water and we add as a resource to water hydrogen, and then hit add, you'll see a hydrogen node has been created. Water now has a drop-down list relying on hydrogen. So we can try to find hydrogen in here, maybe. Probably right here. There's the hydrogen resource, and it's coming from the water resource. The water resource relies on the newly created hydrogen resource. That's kind of a basic example of how you can edit current nodes as well as adding and deleting nodes. The changes when you edit are actually saved back to the file. So when you load that file back in again, these newly created nodes will show up. That's a pretty basic example of what's going on. That's basically it. There's a few other things you can do with this. You can play around with it a little bit, but I don't want to waste too much of your guys' time. I thank you guys for watching. I hope you found it interesting. If you have any questions, just drop a comment.